All right, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We're so glad to have you. We know this is the last session, so we appreciate you hanging around. I'm Nikki Russell. I'm with Hamilton County Schools. I'm the Innovation Specialist at Brown Academy. I've been teaching for several years and started this program several years ago with Michelle. So I'm going to let her introduce you and tell you about the program.
Hi, I'm Michelle Bettis. I work with Hamilton County Schools in the Office of Innovation. And like Nikki said, we are the sponsors of Gig City Girls. We are actually the founders since 2015. I like to say I've taught since the 1900s. I've been in a variety of positions from middle school math, language arts, social studies, science, a STEM teacher, instructional coach at the school level, and then now an instructional coach for the district level. And we've got a little Mentimeter for you here if you want to either scan the QR code or you can enter in that website. It's kind of long, lots of numbers and letters. Just to ask you a question, what would you like to know about starting a girls' coding club? And while you're entering your questions, I just want to tell you a quick story about how Gig City Girls really got started. Like I said, I've taught middle school math, and so when I transitioned from middle school math to instructional coach at my school, the high school engineering class decided that they would put together my desk for me. And so the day that they got it all assembled and brought it down to my office, I was so excited until I looked around and discovered that there was not one single girl in our high school engineering class. And I was like, what can we do about this, you know? So I decided to write a grant for a girls' after-school coding club, and I started it at our school, which was actually a 6 through 12 school. It's since been divided, and it's now a middle school and a high school, but it's one of the largest schools in Hamilton County. That was the other part that was so compelling, is that here it is, one of the largest schools in the district, and not one single girl in the high school engineering class. So with that grant money, I was able to purchase some small items to make a kit so that the girls would have some different activities to do after school. But I found quickly that the most important thing was a snack, because all the girls that came after school were super hungry. And so we had to take care of that need first. Since then, Little Debbie is now our sponsor, conveniently. And so the girls would stay after school, and what I found is these are girls who are not athletes. They're not cheerleaders. They're not participating in any after-school activities. And the girls actually told me, this is the first time I was able to ever stay after school for anything. And so that was very motivating and inspiring. And so from that point, I decided, well, we need to have this type of club in other schools. And Nikki and I had participated in several professional developments together, and both lifelong learners and tech lovers, and so she was the natural person to start it for elementary schools. And so she started at her school, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about how we pitched our idea to Teacherpreneur, which is kind of like the teacher Shark Tank in Chattanooga.
So once Michelle reached out and said that she would like to start it in elementary, and we wanted to do a K-12 program. So I said, well, of course, we're the ladies that are at everything and go to everything and want to start everything. So it was naturally just a quick yes on let's do this. We went through the Teacherpreneur process where you had to work with a company or an organization called CoLab. So we kind of developed our ideas over a few months and then actually pitched it at the Teacherpreneur in Chattanooga to try to get funding. So there was other teachers there with other ideas. We pitched our idea and actually received $10,000 to start our clubs. That year we started with 3. We had 2 elementary and then 1 middle high. And then since then we've reached out to all kinds of clubs schools all over the state of Tennessee. We currently have multiple clubs, about 27 in Hamilton County schools, K-12, that can do it after school, during school. It's nonprofit. We're not trying to make any profit off of it. We're just trying to spread the word and encourage girls to pick STEM and coding careers. We know that the research shows that it's normally a male-dominated field and that we need to give that exposure and opportunity to the girls before they hit middle school. So I helped Michelle kind of come up with the plan for how to implement that in elementary, since she had already had success in middle and high school. So we're going to kind of go through and share some of that vision with you and some of those steps to make it a reality. Everything that we have is free and open to share with you. We'd love to talk to you about it, and we're going to kind of work through that today. I will say that our passion is for all to be able to have an opportunity with STEM and with coding and Gig City Girls, and those that are underrepresented, and then especially in schools that don't, maybe like she said, had an offering for after school, if they're not an athlete or if they're not in any other clubs, and then making sure that we're hitting those minority and underrepresented clubs as well. So we've got some questions on here, and we're going to come back to those and kind of answer those. Hopefully we'll get some of those in our presentation, and if not, we'll be sure to read those over and try to answer them for you right now. This is a link to our presentation, so if you want to just snap a picture, you can go back and look at all the resources that we have on here and all of the links. We will have our contact information. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have a website, so you can have all of our contact information on how to reach out. Again, Michelle or I would love to have a conversation with you, a phone call, or we can even email back and forth. So if you want to snap that, we will come back to that as well. All right, so the basis of the club is to expose girls to computer science. That's one passion of Michelle and I's both, is coding and all the doors that can open for so many students, especially if they're exposed to it early on in their careers. So we're going to watch a little video about why coding is important, and you'll notice some famous faces in this video as well. I think he's working on it for us.
It is, okay.
It is, but it's okay. If you've never seen it, this is what schools don't teach. And it's very, you've got Mark Zuckerberg. You've got the gentleman that created Valve, who is all about making video games. You've got lots of different professionals that you would recognize either by their faces or by their applications or platforms. And it really just talks about how it's just not that hard to start coding. It may be a little intimidating at first, but kind of what isn't, right? We want to make sure we're being those creators and we're being open to trying new things. So this is what we normally start in our clubs, and we share this out. It's actually put on by code.org, so you can find it easily on YouTube and share it out. But it's a great 5-minute video just on how we all use apps on our phones. We all use banking. We all use communication, and nobody really knows how to code. So we need to change that. We know that several jobs just in the state of Tennessee are not able to be filled because nobody has those skills. So we're making sure that we're empowering girls to be able to be competitive in those fields as well.
All right, and why the work is important. This is so important. One thing that just always surprises me is how many girls come to middle school and have not experienced Legos. I mean, it seems like something so basic. But there are already like 6,000 hours, according to this study, 6,000 hours behind their peers. By 2023, which that's next year, there'll be more than 1 million computing-related jobs available. And I think I heard in another session today, like 5,000 jobs are currently available in the state of Tennessee. And all of these are very high-paying jobs. So why would we not want our daughters, our sisters, our female students to participate? The need for STEM employment has increased almost 80% in the last 40 years, but yet girls are only about 20% of all engineers. It just doesn't make sense. And here I am with my very first girls coding club. As you can see, they were just all very diverse, very different, but they were super excited to be staying after school for the very first time.
Here's some of our clubs that we've had in elementary across our district. Again, we started it with 2 elementaries and then it branched out. So we have a whole community of cohort where we encourage them to share photos and give us pictures of their girls and what they're doing. As you see, it's all STEM related activities or coding related activities. You may have learned about some of these products here at the conference today, but we're just giving them exposure and opportunity to have a chance to actually touch and do some coding on their own as early as kindergarten. Normally, I start with 3rd, 4th, and 5th, but you can go down all the way to kindergarten, just depending on what your specialty is and what you're willing to do. But there's not some of these applications and platforms have no reading skills involved, and they can still do coding. We do coding for National Computer Science Month in December, so where all students are exposed to coding, but that's another great way to get your younger students involved as well.
And in these pictures, if you'll go back, Nikki, you can see some of the items that the girls are playing with, Legos, Ozobots, some unplugged activities. I tell all of our coding club sponsors that really you don't need any money to start a club because there's so many free resources online. Our district is one-to-one, so everyone has a device. And so with so many different platforms online, there's always something different for girls to do. But we do provide all of our clubs with a $500 kit. And like I said, Legos, Ozobots, all kinds of things. What are some more things, Nikki? I'm drawing a blank.
B-bots. We have coding books. We've laid out some for you to snap photos of today. We've got 2 that we feature in our presentation. Just basically, we poll the school and say, what do you already have available and what do you not have available? And we try to customize the kits for what the need is for that particular school. We do have some things in there like Ozobots, B-bots, and Legos that we feel are very essential for our kids, but we also try to accommodate whatever the need of the sponsor is for that club.
And it's kind of a win-win for teachers because they can use the kit materials for their classes during the regular school day. They don't have to just exclusively use it with the girls.
So like we said, we started out with 1 club when Michelle started it at East Hamilton High School. Then we went to or middle and high, sorry. And then we went to 3 clubs in 2018. And as you've seen, we've grown to over 20 clubs currently. We're still nonprofit, and we take donations and we take sponsorships. We've had the luck of having PEF helping us start that, Public Education Foundation. They're also the sponsor of the Innovation Hub for our area. And then EPB, Electric Power Board, has been a huge sponsor in helping us continue the work that we're doing. Of course, Little Debbie has as well. But we're constantly looking for partnerships and for people to continue the work. We've got a couple of things in the works right now to continue to be able to grow this. It doesn't take a lot of overhead for us, but we do like to have sponsors there to help us fund our t-shirts, our website, our snacks, and lots of different things that we can do so we can expand more. But to see how much the interest has grown from just these are teacher-led clubs, no formal training and coding is needed. Literally, we give you everything that you need to start out if you have no experience at all or minimal experience. But we're continually growing, so hopefully in the next few years, we will have 40 to 50 clubs, and we have branched out into multiple counties across Tennessee.
It oftentimes ends up that the girls that are in the coding club are actually the trainers of the sponsor. They end up helping so much. I will say that the very first year that we had Gig City Girls, I got a $750 grant from the Junior League. And I checked with PEF to see what our account balance was for how many donations that we had taken in so far just this past week, and we're at $31,000. So we're very proud of that.
So on our first year, we wanted to make sure that we held an event just to kind of honor all the girls and the mothers and anybody that's a female in your family to be able to experience what Gig City Girls did the first year. So this was pre-COVID, and we had an event of over 300 women and students that came out and did coding, did STEM activities. They actually were able to win prizes that we had donated of coding and things that they could do at home. Every girl got a t-shirt, and it was just amazing to see them smile and be safe and feel like they were empowered to be the leaders of STEM when we know that it's mainly a male-dominated field. We had even in schools, when you see girls walk into a middle school classroom and it's all boys, then they're a little more discouraged as far as to how to speak out, or they don't want to. We have all that social issue on there as well. So that's why it's very important that this exposure happens early. But if it is in middle school or high school, we're still having that opportunity to give them the chance, even though they've maybe missed the mark as far as 3rd through 5th grade goes. So this was a fantastic event. You can check out our website. We actually videoed it and have a video on there of some of the activities that we did, and you can check out how we had that celebration. We quickly went into COVID, so we've not been able to do it again, but hopefully that's going to be coming as well. But we did it on Mother's Day weekend, and it was a time for mothers and daughters and everyone just to share, and it was really fantastic. So if you want to check out the website, all of that information on the event there is located on the website, and then you could host something like that as well. It doesn't have to be that large, but you could do something at your school. You could have a Gig City Girls sponsored night. All of our clubs have very creative ways on how they share their work and share their creations, and the parents are just in awe when they get to see it. So check that out. Again, it's just girl-centered. We wanted to make sure that the girls have a place. There are several organizations across the country that do focus on girls, but we wanted to make sure that our girls in Hamilton County had that same opportunity. So just making sure that we're fostering what our mission and vision was for the program. Here they are working, coding, working in our e-labs, working on different coding platforms. These are all free, all accessible to all teachers.
And then here's another video. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see, but it tells a story of a single mother from Knoxville, Tennessee that went back to school to get a computer science degree. So we have shared the link with you, and you should be able to access that video.
It's a very inspiring story about how you can, it's not too late for anybody, for any female, for really anyone, right? But she's a working mother and was going to school and actually changed her career and kind of changed that trajectory of her life just by finding computer science. And there's tons of programs across the state that you can do that are maybe not with Gig City Girls, but it gives that exposure to allow parents or family members to maybe be interested in it as well because it wasn't offered to them in school.
And our color on this graphic isn't very good. For some reason, the screen is not our friend. It just says you shouldn't have to stop playing to go do the learning, and you shouldn't have to stop learning to go do the playing. And I often tell people that if we do not teach kids to code in elementary and middle school, that we're really missing an opportunity to make it easy and fun, because truly it is very fun for them and very easy for them if they can start in as early as elementary. By middle school, it's a little harder, but it is still possible.
And just think about how all the constraints and apprehensions you may have about starting something new. Girls typically don't have that. I can tell you that I'm an e-lab specialist in Hamilton County, and so I have the girls just try it in all of the classes, and one girl could code very quickly, and I walked up to her and said, "Hey, have you ever done this?" And she said, "No, this is kind of the first time." And I said, "Oh, well, I can make you an account. You can do this at home." She didn't have internet at home, and she didn't have a computer, but when I tell you she coded faster than some of the girls that practiced it at home, I said, "Okay, well, we're going to make this work, and we're going to figure this out." So I just encourage you, if this is not your forte, and this is not an area where you feel most strongly that you may not know every little drag and drop, or you may not know every program, it's all about just giving them the experience. And you can be very transparent and say, "I don't really know a lot, but I heard that this is really cool and I want us to try it," and they will take it and they will run with it. You do not need to be an expert. You do not need to have a degree in computer science. You just need to have that motivation and drive to give girls the opportunity to experience it and kind of troubleshoot with them. Normally they figure it out fairly quickly, and like Michelle said, they're teaching us things every day, but just having that open mind to give it to them and say, "I'm not sure, but I heard this was really cool and I really want to try it. Let's see what we can do," and you'll be amazed at what they come out with.
And we did put a few structures in place for our clubs. We kind of call this the recipe for having a Gig City Girls After School Club. We have monthly, just a handout for the girls to do, and that you're able to edit this if you want to. They're found inside our Gig City Girls Google Drive that we share with everyone. But basically what it is a variety of different activities on one side, and then on the opposite side, it has a career. And we feel like you can't just expose them to coding. You also have to talk about careers. That's just as important. And so at each club meeting, we encourage all of our sponsors to pick one computer science career to focus on and have the girls do all the research. All you have to do is come up with the job. Have the girls do the research. They need to find out what the starting salary is, what the education what education is needed, where are those jobs. What's the other thing, Nikki? Oh, and examples of that job, maybe what they do. And just to give those girls an idea.
And then the other pane that is there is just some resources for them to try out. They may have never looked at code.org or never looked at Scratch. And then at the end, when they're finished, we actually turn this in each month and give them a prize for completing this. It could be something from our Little Debbie snacks. It could be some things that you've collected or they've asked for, some donations. And then we display these to share these across the school to help also with those careers. Each month, there's a different theme for what we call a window pane. Like she said, you can edit and adjust those if you want, but there is one for each month and a job that relates to some sort of computer science profession. Okay, so we know that there's major types of engineering. We've got chemical, which includes bioengineering, nuclear, agriculture, and plastic. Then there's civil engineers, which are environmental and structural, which makes bridges and roadways and major skyscrapers. Then we have electrical, which is our computer science or communications. And then we have mechanical, which is our industrial and all of our automated different fields there. So I had no formal training in engineering in my pre-K through fourth education classes. So these are things that I learned just out of interest and importance to offer the girls. But there is a website that you can go to. It's called What Kind of Engineer Are You? It takes just a few minutes to kind of decide what that is, and you can take a little quiz. It asks you to click on pictures to look which is most fun or most interesting to you. So if you wanted to try that out, it's literally Try Engineering. And you can go there to see what kind of engineer you would be. But we have the girls do this at the beginning of the club and then kind of halfway through as well to kind of see if it's changed. But it gives them an area that's something that they may be interested in. Remember, we're only, Michelle and I tell this story too because we started in the 1900s. But when you think back to when you chose to be a teacher, what were you exposed to? We were in the time of pre-internet. So it was kind of like, where did you go in your community, right? We got to go to the fire station, we got to go to the police station, we went to the doctor, we went to school, we went to the grocery store. Some of us grew up with maybe farm animals or different things around in our area, and that's all we were exposed to. So that we just picked our career based on that exposure. So now that we have the internet, we have all of these other things. I was never exposed to a civil engineer until high school, and by then I had it set that I was going to be a teacher, right? I never was introduced to anything with computer science because it wasn't really a thing just yet, right? So you think about all those, when you think back to what you chose to be, and even though I believe that I was meant to be a teacher and I was meant to be an educator, what could have I been if I'd been exposed to something else, right? I have a lot of interest in STEM and a lot of interest in computer science, and I know Michelle feels the same, but we just knew from an early age that we were going to be teachers, and that was that. So we can kind of change that trajectory of a child's life. Think of a student, I'm first generation college student, so if I had exposure, maybe I would have chosen another path. Think about if one student, you actually help them, expose them to something, how that can change the trajectory of their whole life and their whole family. One person going to college and one person choosing a different career can really affect and bring some serious change to a whole family. So just think about that. Maybe check out what kind of engineer you would like to be or which one you most relate to. And then go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, here's a couple of books that we've given in our girls' coding kits before. One is Everyday Superheroes. If you attended the computer science session earlier with Josh Snyderman, he was in there, and this is actually his book. And then the other one is STEM Gems. You can find that one also on Twitter and follow her. She's a great person to follow for ideas for girls. But both of these were great assets for our first coding kits.
And some of our Gig City girls actually drew the drawings and illustrated some of the drawings for everyday superheroes. Josh asked us to draw what scientists look like. And when you think of a scientist, you think of a white lab coat and a guy with some big gray hair, right? So when the girls drew these, they definitely looked different than that stereotypes. And that's exactly what we wanted. So they sent in their drawings, and they actually helped the illustrator create the illustrations for this particular book on their vision from Gig City Girls.
And I will say, in STEM gyms, I had the girls look up different people and research them. And many of these people are still alive, and they're actually on Twitter, which is so amazing for these girls. They're like, oh, this is a real person. They really have a Twitter account. And we've tweeted to them before about our girls and Girls Coding Club, and a lot of times they'll answer. And our girls were just thrilled with that. So now we have a little question for you here. Which of these were invented by a woman? We've got a lot of different things here, so we're going to give you just a minute to think about it and see if you can pick out the ones that were invented by a woman. Some really important things there, like a dishwasher.
All right, what's your guess? Yes, very good. You are the advanced group today.
Clearly.
All of these things were invented by women. So just think about how many inventors or how many women inventors or how many things have been invented that we don't even really know about, right? So you can highlight this. And some of these things were quite a while ago. So just think about how many inventors there are now. All right, so in 1790, the first patent was issued to Samuel Hopkins. What year was the first patent issued to a female?
See how good your math is, too, after you pick the year.
So 1790 was when it was issued to Samuel. Any guesses?
We'll be excited to know it's actually C.
A little bit earlier, right?
It's a little bit reassuring.
Yeah. A little less than 20 years later, finally a female. All right, so here's just another activity that you can do. You can tweet this out. You can share this with the girls. We know that binary code is only in ones and zeros, correct? So you can actually do your initials. You can do your name. We've made bracelets. We've had pipe cleaners with the little beads. We've got some handouts for you today if you'd like to stop up here at the tables, and you can actually check out the binary code activity. But we all love our initials, but when you see it that way, it just looks a little different. Everybody says, what is that? And the girls really like to explain and share how they are coding, even with their bracelets, right? So kind of an unplugged activity. But you're welcome to tweet that out and tag us in your tweet. And then Learning Blade, like Michelle mentioned earlier, is another resource that you can use. They have their handouts here as well, and I know that they've been in several sessions, but it's all about exposure to computer science careers and different technologies. It's a free platform. If you reach out to them, they will help you get it set up. They will help you do everything for it. It's mainly targeted for upper elementary to high school. Mainly middle school is kind of the sweet spot, but you can go down or go up a little bit, and it just gives lots of activities and self-paced courses on all of these different jobs.
And this slide's probably a little bit old. We've used this before, but they did mention in their session earlier that they do have a new program that's geared more towards 7th grade. So if you're a middle school teacher, how many people do we have here that are middle school teachers? Okay, a few. Okay. But they do have a brand new curriculum for 7th grade.
All right, so if you're interested in getting more information about Gig City Girls, we do have your questions. We're going to answer those really quickly. But here is a bit.ly link for you if you'd like to snap a photo, or again, we'll give you the presentation link. And this is where you can put some information in, and we'll reach out and have a conversation with you on how you can start Gig City Girls in your local school. It can just be one school, one group. It doesn't have to be the whole county and everybody. You can start small and kind of build out. But fill that out for us, and we would love to hear from you about starting up your own Gig City Girls. All right, Michelle's got some questions over there. You see anything?
Yeah, here's a couple of questions. Let's see. Building blocks and how to encourage participation. Honestly, If you just offer the club, you'll be amazed at how many girls will want to stay. The very first time I had a club meeting, I had 45 girls by myself. I was way outnumbered. So honestly, if you just advertise for it, you can definitely get a lot of girls there. I have in the past shared like a Google form and let people sign up, and that's how I would know who was staying. So that's one way. What about in elementary?
As far as same thing, we had a lot of response in the elementary, and then once the word got out with the girls and they thought it was really cool to stay and do all the things, we did take several field trips because we had some funding for that. So we kind of capped it and we kind of based it on the children that were not able to do sports or any other activities after school. You can have the club during school hours if your principal or supervisor is open to that, and can organize it that way. I had about 30 to 45 girls that wanted to stay. So I had a couple of other teachers that helped me, so my ratio was not off. And I see that next question of how did you organize the group and meet? That is totally up to you. You can choose one afternoon after school. You can do it 2 days a week. You can do it for an hour. I wouldn't do it any less than an hour because by the time you get in there, eat a snack, and tell them what you're going to do, it's like time to go. So kind of like an hour is the least amount that I would even try. Maybe an hour and a half is kind of the sweet spot. And then we do fill out like a permission slip for the parents to be able to sign off saying that they can stay and participate and what it's about. But that is totally at your discretion. You can meet once a week. I will say with the younger kids, the more consistent you are, the better turnout you have, because if you're a parent like me, you can't remember, is this the second Tuesday or the fourth day of the week or the sunny shine day that we stay? I need it consistent, like Tuesday, 3 to 4, Gig City Girls, right? So that's up to you, but you can do it however you like. And there's no minimum requirement or no maximum requirement, whatever that you prefer, but kind of an hour to an hour and a half. Would you agree with that, Michelle?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Another question in here that's a great question. It says, how do I encourage teachers to sponsor a girls coding club? In our district, we have the STEP program. It's funded by some of the ESSER money, and so it's for enrichment. And so we are able to actually pay our Gig City Girls sponsors a stipend. It's almost like they're coaching football. They're getting paid to do this. And so that's one way that we've been able to do it. Another incentive for the teacher to sponsor the club is that they get a kit. And we try to make it as easy for them as possible. They can, like I said earlier, they can use that kit with their students during the regular school day. And so that's motivating for a lot of people.
So as far as the resources, we give the Google Drive folder, but you've seen tons of resources just here at the STEM, at the TSIN Summit this week, from Designated Learning to Code.org to Sphero to Ozobot to any of those resources that you already have in your building is a great place to start, right? If you've been getting dust over on the side, bring them out, plug them up, and then start playing around with them. All of those coding sites and all the different robotics normally have an educator tab to where you can go in and download lesson plans, and you can look at TikTok, you can look at Pinterest, you can really kind of branch out or have your kids kind of come up with what they want to learn, what do they want to check out once they get a little bit of information about computer science. But as far as resources, you're just going to take all of your STEM and computer science resources and give that to the girls. But again, we have the Twitter page and lots of suggestions there, and kind of whatever you see, you can just do with your clubs.
Yeah, and like Nikki said, Twitter is a great resource. If you're not on Twitter, I highly recommend it. Even if you're not going to have a girls' coding club, I recommend you get on Twitter. One question on here says, how does involvement in girls' coding clubs influence CS or STEM identity? And I will say that I know every single girl that comes to Gig City Girls is not going to be a computer scientist, but I know that all of those girls are going to need to know how to communicate, how to problem solve,
how to critically think, how to solve
be
problems.
creative, solve problems. They're going to need all of those skills, and those are all of the skills that they will be practicing when they code.
And if they haven't ever dabbled in it, then they can't say that it's not for them. right? If they say, well, I just never did computer science, so I don't really know. At least they can say, you know, I tried it and I don't really care for that, but I really like this avenue, so let me go down this way. Maybe one of your STEM careers that you teach them about is like graphic designing or humanities. Or when we think about all the apps and all the things that we use, it's about convenience and time efficiency, right? That's the purpose of apps. That's the purpose of coding, and for not doing so much manual labor. So it might spark an idea that maybe wasn't there. Maybe they don't want to necessarily build a website, but they want to come up with the art that go on it. So it may just encourage them to kind of go into another area, but they can at least say that they tried it and they did or did not like it.
And one other platform I'll mention to you is the Amazon Future Engineer Program. Has anyone ever heard of that that's in here? Okay, we have that in Hamilton County Schools. We're actually in year 3 of our grant. If you're not familiar with it, it's professional development for teachers in the K-5 elementary space. And they come and give you free professional development for 3 years on how to integrate coding and computer science in the regular classroom. And so for the last 2 years, we have a cohort of teachers who've participated, and they have designed all kinds of lessons where they've integrated computer science and coding. And one thing I will say that I continually say to teachers to try to encourage them to use Scratch or to learn how to code is, if you ever make your kids make a Google slide presentation, this is just another way that they could show their learning. They can create a presentation in Scratch coding that they could use to show their learning just as easily as they do in Google Slides.
Another one that says, how do you differentiate for different grade levels? We don't really. As far as like the elementary level, it's 3 through 5. Your middle school is going to be 6, 7th, 8th. Your high school maybe 9 through 12. And we just want to make sure that we're giving out that information and exposing them at first, and then it will naturally kind of differentiate. So you don't need to do a whole lot of planning. We want you to do as minimal as possible. It's all about exposure. So we just give them the task or give them the career, or say, hey, today you're going to mess around with some Ozobots, or today we're going to do Spheros, but you do not have to differentiate and say all 3rd graders over here, all 4th graders, because that's a time that they normally don't get to collaborate with those other students in other grade levels, and they're able to work together in a different group and be part of an organization where I get to be the 5th grader that's the leader and gets to go and show the 3rd and 4th graders how to do it. And you want to keep fostering that, because as they graduate and go away, then you have your experts to bring on your new girls. So we don't really, we don't differentiate necessarily by grade bands, and we don't want to make curriculum hard for you. We really just put them in the room and let them start building those 4 C's with people that they normally don't work with, to foster those skills as well. All right, I think we answered most of them. Any other questions? Yeah. Yes, well, we'll make sure and put that on there, and we can put that in our resource kit. So thank you for sharing that with us. I've heard of it, and we've dabbled in it some, but we need to go back and add some more. So that would be fantastic. We'll add that and check it out. Perfect. Thank you. Well, we'll get in touch and definitely link up our info. Yes, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Well, we promised some swag. We've got lots of T-shirts. There are some unplugged activities. You could come up here and take a copy if you want. Most of these are in our Google Drive, but sometimes you just like to have that piece of paper. We also have some business cards, and we've got some T-shirts up here. We just ask that you follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and you can come have a T-shirt.
So we've got some T-shirts on this side, and there's some books if you want to snap a picture on some coding and where to start with coding if you're interested. But thank you very much for coming. Let us know if you need any help starting your club.